Hello and welcome back to CWU Live. Great to have you all back again. We're really rolling now with this show, getting into our groove, making things happen, and we're learning, both as we produce it, but also from what you're saying. In fact, what you're saying is very important to us, so much so that we've added another segment to the show. Quite literally, the comment section. We're going to feature some of the things that you've said, questions you've asked, and provide you with more details as a result. And there will be more on offer too in the future, so please keep an eye out. First up is the industry news. We have a letter sent to The Guardian giving advice to people about how to get your postal votes in on time despite an unreliable Royal Mail. It goes on to talk about the very rapid decline in service levels and how in the author's local area, residents are receiving less than one Royal Mail delivery per week and can wait a month for a second-class letter to arrive. It seems like the public's trust in Royal Mail service is quite low, and with our posties feeling the pressure and a general election on the horizon, it could be a very stressful time. What can we do to support our members? Well, we put this to Postal Executive Member Tony Bush.
Obviously, I'm aware of the public outcry around some of the articles we've seen in the press recently around quality of service. So there's a couple of things we've done. So as a union, we've done a joint statement with Royal Mail on quality of service, section 2.5, improving that, trying to find resolutions to ensure the public get the service that they deserve, i.e. a letter delivery 6 days a week to 32 million addresses. So we're trying to do that through a dual approach. So one is around CWU reps and managers engaging between the regional level, area level, office level to find the solutions to ensure walks can go out day in, day out and the public get that service. The second part we're doing is obviously engaging with the business in terms of recruitment requests, ensuring that the jobs are filled. And obviously the third thing we've done is where there are recruitment struggles and some delivery issues, then we put in place a process that walks are not left in offices day in, day out, that they're rotated around the office, which then would ensure the public get those deliveries that they need, and obviously the postal votes will get out. So we're on top of it. If members of the public are still not seeing deliveries delivered, then contact your local press, contact your local MPs, and obviously from a CWU member's point of view, if our members are seeing that in their offices, then look, we're reconnecting in the workplace. Get hold of your reps, get hold of your branches, and ensure they contact headquarters, and we'll support you.
Cheers for that, Tony. And one more story before we move on. It's fairly recent news, but you may have heard that Czech billionaire Daniel Kretinsky has been exploring the option of becoming the new owner of Royal Mail. Its recent valuation has fallen to £2.1 billion. Kretinsky is already the largest shareholder in International Distribution Services, which is Royal Mail's parent company. In response to this, Dave Ward and Martin Walsh have released a statement. The breaking news of an impending takeover bid for Royal Mail Group, IDS, by Daniel Kretinsky is another significant moment. The truth is handing over the ownership of one of the UK's most prestigious institutions to a foreign equity investor cannot be right, but neither is the current model or direction of the company. The truth is Royal Mail needs a new ownership and governance model that builds a postal service for the workers and customers, and not one built solely focused on shareholder payouts and driving down the service and the terms and conditions of the workers. The CWU will be campaigning publicly and politically to deliver this change of direction. So a real strong response there. We'll have more about that in the future as the story progresses, so keep tuning in. Well, it's time now to bring in our studio guest, Deputy General Secretary-elect TFS, Karen Rose. Good afternoon, Karen. Great to have you with us again.
Good afternoon, Omar.
Lovely to have you back. Let's start with the obvious. You're into your final days as president. Conference is a massive event for the union. Are you looking forward to it?
Yes, always look forward to conference, always look forward to the debates on the motions, and also is the place, I suppose, where we come together. And we haven't done that for a while now, since April 2022 really was the last conference we had. So it was always good to go to conference. Hard work for me, I have to say, when I'm in the chair for a whole 6 days really running, and it is quite, it is quite a job, but it's one that I'm privileged to do, and I'm looking forward to it, because of course it will be the last time that I will be chairing conference, because becoming Deputy General Secretary, that's not part of that role. So yeah, looking forward to it.
And how does that feel, this being your last conference that you'll be chairing?
I suppose it's a little bit strange. In some ways, it's it feels a little bit sad because it's kind of what you're used to. But then I'm moving on to something else, something new, and something that's going to be a new challenge. And I think that's always good.
Okay. What are the key debates that members should be looking out for in the conference itself?
I think it depends which conference. So I think, first of all, on Sunday, we've got a conference which is setting the union's policy around restructuring our union. And I think that is something that, in some ways, it's been long overdue, because we certainly need to modernise the union, because things have changed, and members will know, all of our members know, that technology is impacting them in the workplace. And from a trade union point of view, I suppose to an extent we have to embrace some of that technology ourselves in order to make sure that we continue to provide the services to the members that are both effective, what they want, and value for money. So some of those things, some of the restructuring stuff is about how we go about modernising in lots of ways, making changes that make the representation that we give to members even more effective. And like this show, for example, is part of our restructuring, and it's about finding different ways to reach out to our members and making sure that we have an interactive relationship with our members, so that it's not just a one-way street. We are actually listening and hearing what they say as well.
And you'll be in a better position to do that after the conference, actually, because then you'll be Deputy General Secretary, Telecoms and Financial Services. Are you excited about that?
Yes, I am very excited about that. And like I said, I think it'll be challenging, but I've never shied away from that, and I am looking forward to it. And as I suppose in preparation for that, this year, every year our branches hold an annual general meeting, AGMs we call them, and in various different places around the country. I've recently travelled around quite a bit to various different areas. I've been to Scotland, been to Ireland, been to places in England and Wales, to actually attend some of those annual general meetings, and that is really great, right? I always come away from there with something that I didn't know before, and always useful information, something that we can take away and go and look into, because quite often it's surprising that you only get to hear about something when you actually either visit members in the workplace or you visit an annual general meeting in their locality, or just a branch meeting in their locality. And one of the things that I really want to change is to make sure that we have a much more interactive relationship with the members, so that we don't have to wait until we're actually in their workplace or in a meeting in their branches to hear what it is that's going on and what's important to them in the workplace. We need to open up those communication channels more.
And I guess I'm wondering, and I'm sure a couple of members out there are probably wondering as well, just obviously this elevation in position means that you'll be a lot busier, and so you've got hopes to open those channels of communication and, you know, meeting with more people and groups, but your time will be stretched quite a bit, so there might be a bit worry there.
We're a team. So I will be the Deputy General Secretary. I'm the officer then to the Telecoms and Financial Services Executive, and also underneath that structure, reporting into the Telecoms and Financial Services Executive are different national teams. So that stuff gets fed up through, information can be fed up through the national teams, through the executive, to me. But also that team is something that, for me, as the Deputy General Secretary, I can use information from, or ask them to carry out tasks in order to make sure that that information is being fed back. We have an executive meeting every month, and if we make sure that our national teams and our national executive members are very much more in touch with the grassroots, and that is what our structures are intended to do, and we've got structures all the way down that are meant to be that kind of two-way interactive street, then we can make sure that we're getting the information up and we're passing information down. What I think that we don't do at the moment, that I think that we can do in the future, is some of our teams have already started using it, is we start employing surveys. and their surveys by email, so that we put out specific questions to ask for our members to answer on specific subject matter. And those questionnaires, when they go out, are very specific to the group of members that we send them to, so they would be relevant to those people. So that's one of the more kind of information seeking things that we are doing, is that survey. But like I said, it is a whole team. It's not one person. Everybody can be involved in this.
Yeah, make enough. Okay,
Yeah.
I see. I understand that you've met the new BT Group CEO.
Yes.
Is there anything from that meeting at all that you can share with our members? Any details at all?
It was quite an informal meeting. It was just an introduction, really. Obviously, we did talk about the strategy in BT. Basically, asked the question about whether, obviously, there's been a changeover of CEO. Philip Jansen has gone, and Alison Kirkby is now the CEO. It's interesting. It's the first time we've had a woman in that position, I think, and that kind of was kind of quite interesting, because I felt, and maybe I just felt this because I'm a woman, there was a slight change in the dynamic than previous meetings. Alison Kirkby has been on the board of BT for some considerable time now, quite a few years, and so I think that if we were to say that she's probably bought into and been part of the strategy that they've set out, I think that would be true, and I think she confirmed that. So I don't think we're going to see any major changes in strategic direction. I think personalities always make a difference.
Yeah.
But strategically, in terms of what the company's doing and what the plans they've set out, I don't expect those to change that much. What I think was really quite good is that I kind of had the impression, or I definitely had the impression, that this is a CEO who wants to work with us and wants to have that communication channel open in order to work through some of the challenges that we will no doubt face ahead. Because you can't have a company that's going through the level of change that BT is going through at the moment without there being challenges that we'll have an interest in.
Yeah.
And so what's important then is that we have communication channels open between us and the company, and that we make sure that we have an input at the right point to some of the changes and innovations they want to make. Because what we've seen too many times in the past is the company will come to us after they've already made decisions. And the one thing that I've asked for is that we want to be involved before the decisions are final, because we want to have a say in what those outcomes are. I guess the proof of the pudding is always in the eating, so we'll just have to see how that pans out.
Have to wait and see exactly. It's early days yet.
Yes.
When we last spoke, there was a bit of concern about inward-facing cams in OpenReach vans.
Yes.
And since then, their position has changed. So is this a win for the union then?
I think it's a win for the union, because there is no doubt that for some considerable time, for months, the company were talking to us about the introduction of dash cams. And originally, when they brought the suggestion to us and explained the technology that was involved and the fact that some of these cameras would be inward facing and were basically total surveillance of what was happening in the cabs of those vehicles, then we clearly were vehemently opposed to that. And so we made our representations very clear over some considerable time. That was ongoing. We asked them to provide the data because they claimed that it was a safety issue. We didn't believe that it was the safety issue that they were saying, and we asked for the evidence, and that wasn't forthcoming. And then, of course, some of the management, I think, actually let the cat out of the bag, shall we say, and our members got to hear about it. And I remember being at the Young Workers Conference, and some of the young workers had put in an emergency motion to that conference, which was about the dash cams and about the surveillance element of them and the invasion in privacy. And that was publicised. And then what happened was, on the company's own workplace, which is their own internal social media, what happened is there started to be debates that took place on there. And what was clear about those debates was the members in Openreach in particular, because they were the ones who were mainly going to be affected by this, were absolutely opposed to it, up in arms about it.
Yeah.
And so, as a trade union, of course, when your members are telling you that something is totally against what they want, we were already opposed to it ourselves anyway. So we decided to launch a campaign. It was probably the shortest campaign we've ever launched, because I think we had the call with the branches in the morning to launch the campaign, and by the afternoon, Openreach had made an announcement to say they were no longer pursuing the idea. But I don't think the idea of dash cams has gone away. I think what we need to make sure that we're doing is making sure that we keep an eye on the space to understand what it is they're going to implement and why. Because what we can't have, and it's like lots of forms of surveillance that we're seeing in the workplaces these days, is you can't have a situation where somebody is so over-monitored, so micromanaged, that actually the stress of that stops them actually being effective at their job. Because that is what our members are telling us. When they're watched and managed so every single second of every single day, they start to feel stressed about it. And actually that then impacts on them the way they're able to do their job. It's not necessary. And I don't think we're ever going to be in a position where we would support that level of micro surveillance.
But you expect it to come back again in the near future?
I think potentially it will come back. What format it will come back in, we don't know. I think maybe the company will come back and want to talk to us about outward-facing dash cams, which is a slightly different proposition. And we would have to look at that, and we would have to talk to, what I said earlier, we need to talk to the members and see what they feel about it, because we are their representatives. So we have to take on board what it is that they feel and what it is they really would like us to do about it.
And then I suppose for members then, the thing to pick up on here is that because there was such a vehement opposition to this that was voiced so loudly, action was very swift. And so in the future, when this kind of thing comes up again, we would say, again, bring your voice in, talk to us and just get out there and have your opinions shared. And that's what really matters here, right?
Absolutely. The best battles are always won when everybody unites behind the winning of them. And if you bring everybody together, you see, actually, the members of this union, or any union, are the absolutely best asset. They are the union. So when you talk to those people and explain to them what they need to do in order to come together, in order to run a campaign for something that they want in the workplace, that is the absolute best way of winning. And that's why the members need to get involved in more campaigns. Definitely. It's not about us doing everything for them, because actually, by them getting involved, by them uniting behind a subject matter, actually it gives us the leverage then in negotiation. So we're the negotiators. They really are the army that sits behind us.
And actually, so just on that, I guess in your new role, how far will communications, how high up would that be in your priority list? Because I know you touched upon it earlier with, having a team of people out there to help get members and what they say back to you so you can be more effective. But we'd also love to have you on this show again, regularly. So how far up is communications on your priority list then?
Communication has got to be the top of the priority list, because nothing happens unless we communicate. And it's in our name, isn't it? Communication Workers Union. And sometimes people would criticise that we don't always do it that well, but I actually think that we probably do it better than an awful lot of other trade unions. That doesn't mean to say that we can't improve, But communication is key to everything. It is key to a negotiation. It is key to communicating with the members. It's key with any of our communications that we put out, and I'm calling them communications, but if we put out a letter or we put out anything on social media, anything that we do, communications is absolutely key to it. So that has got to be top of the priority list, because nothing works without it.
Yeah. Outside of Openreach and BT, we have members in so many other companies within TFS that are seeing threats of closures, redundancies, offshoring of work in this sector. How is it that the union can combat that best?
And that is probably one of our biggest challenges. We've seen, particularly in in all of the companies where we represent people, actually, there's not very many other than ones where, like for example, our engineering workforce, where they're in vans and they're mobile workers, and the job actually requires them to go out and physically do something. To an extent, those jobs are not impacted in the same way. They are impacted, right? And there is an innovation, and improving the infrastructure will eventually impact the amount of resource that's required for those roles, right? So I'm not dismissing that for a minute, because we're already seeing that in Openreach, for example, there's been voluntary leaver options available to people, which has caused some concern, I think it would be right to say it has caused concern among that membership, because they feel as if the resource is being reduced. But at the moment, that's by voluntary means. That's by them being offered voluntary packages. Not in all cases, but there has been a couple of voluntary exercises. Where you've got desk-based workers, with the technology that's now available to companies, that work can be done anywhere.
Yeah.
And so the threat we are seeing in the UK, actually, at the moment, is that because there are economies elsewhere that offer those sort of jobs or that sort of work to be done on a much lower cost basis, what we're seeing is companies that are trying to cut costs are pushing work offshore. Now, we think, as a trade union, we would be lobbying to have legislation that mitigates that, to make sure that, particularly when it's UK-based work and a UK-based customer base, that work should be done in the UK. And I think that would be our position. But it is going to require an amount of legislative change in order to deliver that, because companies will always go for the cheaper option. So we're campaigning politically. I think that a long time ago, we saw the fact that when you put customer-facing work offshore, what happened was companies decided to bring that work back because the customers weren't particularly comfortable with it. So now we are facing a big kind of dilemma, because there's low wage economies abroad, and arguably you'd say, well, some of those economies need that input of work. But equally, when we are seeing people in this country being basically priced out of the market, or actually cost cutted out of the market because it's cheaper abroad, and those people are being faced with job losses and not the kind of alternative employment that pays them the same wages, then I think that has a massive impact on the UK economy, and we're already in a race to the bottom on that front. So that is something that I think the government needs to sit up and take notice of. What we can do is campaign on that, and also what we can do is make our members aware of it, so that they start to realise that that's a threat to them, and that they can unite behind the campaign. I suppose we'll have to have a campaign basically which is across company, not just in one company, because it's not just in one place that we're seeing it.
Across the industry.
Yeah, across the industry, particularly in the call centre world, but it's not just the call centre world, it's in desk-based jobs generally. Anything that can be done because the technology allows somewhere else, then what's happening is, if it's cheaper, it's being taken away.
Okay. So campaigning must be done. That's the next step.
Yeah.
Okay. Karen, thank you. Any final messages you want to give to our reps, members over the next few months? Any details you want to share?
I suppose the same message to all of them, and this is almost the same message that I always give. So, look, strength is in our numbers. So we need to make sure that all of our reps, all of our branches, all of us are keen to increase the membership, make sure that we're talking to people who are non-members. Just for our members in the workplace, talk to your colleagues, talk to your members, the other members of your team. Ask them if they're a member of the CWU. And if they're not, then either get in touch with your local branch so that they can have a conversation with them, or actually put them in touch with the local branch. Because strength is in our numbers. A lot of these campaigns that we've just been talking about will only be won with a huge union membership and great membership density. We really need to grow this union now to make sure that right across the sectors that we represent members, that we have got masses of members, so that there's nowhere for anybody to go where there isn't a CWU membership presence.
Thanks again for so much for that, Karen. As always, hugely appreciated.
Thank you.
Now, in this segment, we'll be taking a few select comments every week, be it praise, criticism, or questions, and featuring them during this segment, the comments section. So, if you want to comment on anything Karen has said or raise any other TFS-related points, then please put them in the comments and we'll cover them in a future show. Now, on to last week's feedback. First up, we have a comment from Steve Beaumont asking for an update on Fleet. Steve, we hear you, and many others out there who have asked for the same. Big shout out to Steve Roscoe as well, who has written to us many times asking for more on Fleet. Now, here's something to share. The CWU have reached an in-principle settlement on Royal Mail Fleet covering pay and change. Now, it's being finalised, so no details can be shared as yet, but once all is signed and sealed, we'll be sure to get the specifics out to you as soon as possible. Our Deputy General Secretary Postal, Martin Walsh, has asked us to let you know that he is meeting all of the senior fleet reps at conference next week to update them. Then they will get into the workplace. Next, Danny Smith wrote in saying, I don't trust Royal Mail and I don't trust the union. Most posties are silent quitting now. We are getting nothing from either side, just being driven into the ground in horrific working conditions every day. Posties are being mistreated every day and the unions sit back and let it happen. And by the look of it, are trying to add more work onto us. I've never seen so much chatter and little action. Danny, sorry you feel that way. We put this to Postal Executive Member Luke Elgar and here was his reply.
Look, what Danny's saying, I'd say, is what we hear quite a fair bit when we're out in offices. So it is recognised that this is a common feeling amongst our members. The reality is, well, the first thing is what we've got to say is, look, we need to make sure workload's achievable. That means making sure that every single one of our members gets to review what's being done in terms of the planners' work behind the scenes, make sure that's not all done remotely and outside the office, and actually they get to review what's being proposed about their duties. They get to review and make sure that the workload's all correct so that it's achievable workloads. But when we talk about new products and services, that there's a reason the unions say that, and it might be an old cliche, work is power, but ultimately that is the reason behind it. We need to make sure if Royal Mail don't have the answers for the future to grow the industry, to protect our members' jobs, then we need to come up with the solutions for that. So look, we don't apologise for saying that new workload is important. We need to understand that Royal Mail's growing, bringing in new products and services, looking at the remit and ensuring that we have secure jobs with a bigger remit to what we actually do day in, day out, whilst letters decline, as Royal Mail keep pointing out. But we've got to offer the solutions to that, and then on top of that, absolutely we've got to make sure that those workloads are achievable and that people actually understand what they're expected to do. They can push back that through their rep, through their local rep, and if it's not resolved locally, then it's pushed up to division, area, national level to be resolved, and that's the only way we're going to move this forward.
Thanks for that, Lube. Hope that helps, Danny. Finally, we have had members asking us for special episodes on Parcel Force and network changes. We put this to our head of comms, Chris Webb.
Yeah, thanks, Omar. We have seen the comments from our members in Parcel Force, our members up in Scotland, the Royal Mail members who are want a session on network changes. So really pleased to say we'll be having both of those sessions in the coming weeks. We'll be contacting the relevant officers. The other thing we want to say to members is obviously to remember that this package of communications, the weekly show, the monthly podcast and the monthly workplace bulletin, was what replaced what was previously a magazine that you got 3 times a year. So not every week will we cover every issue on this show, but over the course of the year we can guarantee you that every section of our union will get a voice on the show and on the workplace podcast and on the workplace bulletin. So I suppose it's hard when you want to hear about your issues, but if you could just have a little bit of patience, I'll promise you, and the union promises you, that we're going to get round to all of you. But definitely a network special for the members up in Scotland. Martin Walsh, our Deputy General Secretary, has been up there with our divisional reps and Royal Mail management this week. Definitely a session on parcel force and much more.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks everyone for your comments. As you can see, we do want to hear from you. We do want to find answers to the questions you have, so please keep commenting. And that about does it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in to CWU Live. As always, we really appreciate you being here and supporting us. For the next show, it's going to be a bit different because, and I promise it's the last time I'm mentioning this, but it's the CWU Conference next week. So we're going to bring you the news coming out of the event, from debates to keynotes, hearing from members and speakers, and more. But as always, if there's something or someone you'd like to see on the show in the future, or perhaps you want to share your thoughts on things so far, comment down below. We'll see you again next week. Until then, stick with your union.